Hi there, guys. Um, let's put this guy up. Can you all see that little diagram up there?
I do, black and white.
Yep, black and white. Okay, this is the outline of the model for planning a business. Now, the most important thing about this is that the reason businesses exist is because they sell products to customers. Therefore, the most important thing to know is what is your product. So many businesses they're in business, and especially larger businesses, they actually don't really know what product is. Their sales team might have an idea, but the people who are actually working in the rest of the business don't. Now, whenever you plan a business, I don't believe you should plan a whole business. I believe you should plan each product individually and then bring the product plans together to give you your business plan. And just to go through that diagram very quickly, if you know what your product is and you know which customers you're going to sell to, you therefore know what resources you need to move your product to your customers. You know what people you need to run those resources, and therefore you know what cash you need at what period of time in order to make all of that work. Now, the question becomes, if you're planning a business, or let me rephrase, if you're planning your first product, what do you need to know about the product? Well, firstly, when I do this practically with people, I start them off by saying to them, get hold of a DL size piece of paper. Now, if you don't know what that is, a DL is an envelope size. It's a third of an A4 vertical. Now, you can work vertically or horizontally or portrait or landscape, whichever way you wish to work. But the point is, on that one side of a DL piece of paper, put down the points that a customer would want to know about your product and would give them a reason to actually buy your product. In other words, you've got to say there, what are the benefits? Why do you need this? What's the thing that's going to make your life better if you buy this? Now, very often when guys advertise, particularly their company, because everybody wants to think about company and not think about product. When they advertise their company, they start off with phrases like, we've been in existence since 1842. Well, here's a big surprise. No one cares. The real point is that you need to make sure that when a customer looks at you, what they're looking at is, what do I get out of this? And you need to answer that question. And the only way you can answer that question is to describe to them what benefit they would get by firstly buying and secondly utilizing your product as opposed to anybody else's product. And then just to add an addendum to that, the after-sales service a customer receives tends to influence their view of a product. Because very often if there's a problem with a product and there's no after-sales service that helps them sort it out, then they tend to think the product is no good, as opposed to the fact that in 9 times out of 10, they don't know how to use it properly. Now, when you're putting a product description together, the easiest way to start this is to say, hey, this is who we help, this is what we help them do, and this is why we do it well. And if you can get those answers on that piece of paper that I was talking about, that's a very good starting point in terms of what your product is all about. Fairly obviously, the nature of the product as well also determines the rest of that diagram you see in front of you. For example, if you're selling babies' nappies, it is unlikely your customers are going to be teenage men, because honestly, they don't give a damn. So if you know exactly what your product is, and let's stick with the baby's nappies one, then when you look for your customers, the most important thing is to look in the right place. And sticking with the baby's nappies thing, if you're going to sell baby's nappies, How about maternity wards or people coming out of a hospital in a wheelchair with a baby in the woman's lap? I'm sure they're going to want to know something about babies' nappies, but at that point in time is not a good point to hand them an advert because they've got a few other things on their mind. What we found with a company, in fact, that did babies' nappies, is they got friendly with the maternity nurses. And the maternity nurses actually gave them the contact details of the people who just had babies. And they added these to their database, and then a month or so after that person had left the hospital, they started contacting them. So there's an awful lot of stuff that you need to know about your product to carry on with the rest of this diagram. I don't want to add anything more at this stage until I get questions. So anyone with questions?
All right, we've got a hand up there from Hector. Hector, open up your mic and then ask your question, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. I needed to find something out. I understand the part of the product, but are you applying the same method to your business where you specifically dealing with services?
A service is a product, Hector. There's no difference. Remember that when you're describing your service, the same thing applies. What are you trying to, what's the benefit to the client? Why should they talk to you? Why should they buy your product? What do you do differently? What's the benefit to them? There's no difference.
Okay.
Just to expand on that service answer, you know, very often people say we produce PowerPoint presentations as an example. No one needs that. And perhaps the easiest example is, you know, you don't go and buy a drill and a drill bit at a hardware store because you want a drill and a drill bit. What you really want is a hole in the wall because you want to hang something. And the important thing is to market the fact that the thing that they are buying is going to allow them to easily and quickly hang something, whatever that thing is. So be careful what you sell when you sell a service. You know, we are lawyers. Means nothing to people. But if you say something like, "Are you having problems with setting up a family trust? We can help." That is more specific and therefore and is probably something somebody's looking for. They're not looking for a lawyer. They're looking to sort out a family trust.
Gavin, just to maybe contribute, Jasper knows me as a biokineticist, but I'm also a virtual assistant for a digital marketing agency.
Yes.
And I find that one of the main problems we have is that you'll have a client for over a year. They're spending a lot of money on their marketing, but they haven't clearly defined their product. So even to their marketing team, no one really, if you don't have a clearly defined product, you don't know who you're speaking to or why. And I find a lot of people waste a lot of money on a marketing strategy, but they haven't actually defined for themselves and for their marketing team what their product is and what that product means to their.
Was it Shira? Okay, do you have a specific example on that? Because
so, for example, we've got a company that's working with telecommunications, but actually what they want to be focusing on is payment solutions and payment security. So if you're talking around the telecommunications thing, it becomes very broad. So you're talking fiber, you're talking ADSL, you're talking security online, you're talking so many different things. Whereas if you want to focus on payment solutions and payment security and connectivity for payment solutions, that changes the conversation from someone who's going from a business to a customer, then to a B2B conversation. And that kind of conversation is going to happen more on, say, LinkedIn than it's going to happen on Facebook. And it's going to be very specific around the needs of, say, Black Friday's coming up. Are you able to cope with the capacity for the type of sales that you want to do? And that's a very different conversation to, do you have fiber?
Oh, nice example, thank you. I think one of the classic examples has to do with the American railway business. The guys who owned and ran the American railroad system, their whole product conversation was about the fact that they were in railroad. And they got taken apart by truckers because truckers realized they were in the freight business. And, you know, the railway guys just never seemed to catch on that their job was to move freight from point A to point B. Whereas the truckers did. And as a result of that, American Railways, I think they moved less than 10% of what the truckers in America now move. And they used to move 100% of